Hello, this is Father Louis Scurti with Friends of the Word, continuing our ongoing interviews on the topic of St. Francis Xavier Cabrini, patroness of, I guess they say patron now, no, they don't use the patroness anymore, right. Patron of immigrants. My guests, some of whom you've met, is Monsignor Paul Bocchicchio. He's chaplain of the project. Gilda Bello, who has been Mr. Wolfington's right-hand lady on promoting and pushing this, officially Italian community outreach, and she's going to talk more about what her role is and how she got involved with this. And of course, Mr. Eustace Wolfington, who is the next to Mother Cabrini, the executive producer, because Mother Cabrini is the executive producer, right?
That's the moment.
He calls it. Okay, so we can get a little perspective from a woman's perspective. So far, I'm not embarrassed, but that's who lined up. All our guests have been men, so it's very important that we have Gilda, because Mother Cabrini would have insisted that we have a woman at least. Not because she's a woman, because she's another person. And she
was pretty good with the men, though.
Yeah. Oh, she controlled them. Gilda, why don't we start with you? What role are you playing right now in this?
Right now, the Italian community outreach, because I'm iscritta all'albo, how would you say that? The Association of Italian Journalists in Bologna.
Okay.
That's where I've lived for more than 30 years. And so we met, Eustace, just how many years ago with Sister Mary Louise?
Around 2010. Around 2010.
Yeah, that's right. 11, yeah. See. And so we needed to do the Mother Barbagallo, Superior General and historian and author, sent me to Sister Mary Louise Sullivan. And Sister Mary Louise Sullivan, she was president of Cabrini University, introduced me to Mr. Wolfington.
Great. The seed of the idea of this movie, what was the original seed?
The original seed was Sister Mary Louise Sullivan walking into my office with Gilda, saying, "Will you help us do a movie on Mother Cabrini?" That was in 2010. As I said earlier, I said absolutely no.
St. Francesca showed you. She didn't know how to take a no from an answer.
She didn't have to take a no.
So that's how it's.
What's interesting, Mother Cabrini, I want to point something out about Mother Cabrini, which always fascinated me. Mother Cabrini took the vow of obedience. And everywhere she went, she did such a wonderful job early on in Italy that all the heads of the diocese wanted to keep her. And anywhere along the line, they could have said to her, "I'm going to give you an order, you can go no further." And she knew that. And she knew how to weave around that bullet all the way up to the Pope. So that was an amazing quality that she had. She's a very savvy woman.
And in her writings, she talks to, when she's writing letters to her sisters, she tells them the value of obedience. But she puts it in a way that it becomes it is a virtue, but another kind of virtue. It goes up to God. You know, when you're obeying, you're doing God's will, you push yourself aside, and you're going forward for the bigger picture, in my words, the bigger picture. And I was so impressed. More than once she spoke about obedience.
She was big on obedience.
And Paul, remember anything that sticks out in reference to her call of obedience?
Well, I think that what's characteristic of her was her willingness to put aside her dream
to
of
China.
going to
Yes.
China.
Yes.
Because the Pope said, "Go west, not east," and that was her dream, her whole life. Yeah. But it just shows the power of her taking seriously, the call to obedience.
Yes, beautiful. Gilda, you mentioned before, off camera, a characteristic of many of the Mother mothers, because she called all her sisters mothers. That was one of the titles, and it showed the relationship she wanted with
And
the
daughters.
students.
They were her
daughters.
daughters,
Right.
too. Okay.
You mentioned something about ethnicity in reference to some of her mothers here in the United States, when I said that Jerry is an Irishman who speaks Italian.
See, yes. When she came, she realized that her sisters needed to speak Italian to do the outreach to the Italian immigrants here.
Sure.
And very strangely, all the superior generals are now Irish, going back a very dear friend, Superior General Patricia Spillane, and
Sullivan.
yes, and they all speak Italian with an adorable Irish accent, but they all speak Italian, and she instituted that.
Yeah, which shows in some ways she was so universal, and I don't want to say ecumenical because that was going to come out, but I realized she was not a sample of ecumenism.
No.
She had no, God bless her, she was a woman of her times. She had no place in her life for people who were not Catholic or anti-Catholic, and she called them Satan sometimes and enemies of the church. So, but she also had the experience, and you probably can address this, Paul, of Protestants taking over some churches and making them, quote, Italian churches.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Well,
In downtown New York.
Because what was happening, and that's why her ministry was so important, was the many Protestant groups were trying to win over the Italians with food and material things, you know, and win them over to the church.
And what did they put in their churches that Protestants don't have? Statues.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we're Italian, so
Yeah.
we know that.
Yeah.
We go back to the Roman, the value of sculpture, and they did that, and she was angry at that.
Well, she also, it's interesting, she was, of course, Northern Italian, but there was, I remember reading something that impressed me about how she recognized the specific devotion and piety of the Southern Italians, which was very saint-oriented.
Yes.
And she blessed it.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
saying that this was something good, and yet at the same time led them to a deep, because one of the great criticisms many of the Irish of the Italians when they came was that they almost looked pagan, you know, because the saints seemed to be more important than God. But Mother Cabrini had a way of incorporating it. I think that the beauty of her was that she had a way of integrating. You know, like she was very strong on her students and her sisters learning English, but equally strong in retaining their Italian culture.
Yes, yes.
And you know, and their language, you know, which I think, unfortunately, many immigrants lost that because at a certain time, people were made to feel ashamed for being Italian and for speaking Italian. And I had an experience in my own family when my grandparents came here. The Italian parish, Our Lady of Pompeii, had no school, so all my brothers and sisters, my father's brothers and sisters, went to St. Joseph's in the village, which was the Irish school, and called the Irish school.
Yeah, we had that.
But years later, I wondered why on my grandmother's mailbox it read Bocchicchio and underneath Bacchito. It was because in St. Joseph's School, they changed the Italian name.
No.
Because they were too hard to say.
Oh, Madonna mia, stop.
And so their school records read Bacchito. You know, and you wouldn't get away with that today.
No,
know.
right.
Yeah. But it's just another way of, you know, being made to feel as if you're American now. And it's funny. I knew more Italian than my father did. You know, because I think the second generation had a way of reclaiming.
Yes,
you
you
know,
had to stay away from it. Yeah.
What they were made to feel, not necessarily ashamed, but reluctant to.
Yes.
involve. And Mother Cabrini, that was not her spirit.
No. A perfect example of a woman today in our culture. I mean, today. I mean, she really integrated, understood. There were certain religious things that she was.
Well, one of the things going to come out of the movie, Mother Cabrini's message always was, you're going to be a great American through education. And number two, she said, you can never forget your Italian heritage, the great art, the great music, the great language. And throughout our movie, we picked that theme up. And when Mother Cabrini was in New Orleans, where they were really looked down with disdain on the Italians at that time, she went to an Italian opera. And she saw everyone clapping for the great, all the citizens of New Orleans were clapping for the great opera music of the Italians. And it struck her. She said, that's going to be my kid. And she had her people dress up to the nines, all her students, and had them learn to play Verdi, and had them walk around town playing this operetta music. And the people were so fascinated. And the reason she had seamstresses all the time, because she would dress everybody up to the nines. And in our movie it shows, when she's taking an immigrant off the street, she would have her seamstresses make uniforms for them, make them look, let them look like $1 million, you know? And that's because she was always trying to instill the dignity of what a great nation they were, what great people they were. Because they had gotten beat up and started to have that down feeling.
Sure.
And she worked especially in mines. In Denver, she worked in the mines. In Pennsylvania, Scranton, Pennsylvania, she worked in the mines. And would take them, those gentlemen, have all new suits made for them and have them dressed up to the nines. So on Sunday, they go to church and feel good about themselves. So she was that's why they call her mother also. I mean, she was like a mother. Yeah. And all her nuns were like mothers.
You mentioned the mines. One story came up. When her sisters were in Colorado, in the mines, they would let them down in buckets into the where the miners were working, so they could minister to them and bring them food and talk about God.
Yeah,
it was wonderful. I mean,
that started in Pennsylvania. And carried out to Colorado. And she also was very entrepreneurial. She had her nuns go out and stake claims on gold fields, and was never really too successful at it. But I think she hit a couple, but not too many. But she was an entrepreneur, believe me.
Absolutely. The shrine dedicated to her in Colorado is huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and the territory. Have you been?
Yes, I have.
Could you describe it? I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's almost like in the desert.
Yeah.
And you go up, and it's the building, and then you can see, just look out over the whole, almost like this expansive territory that she was involved with. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And water came from those.
Yeah.
Those
And
mountains.
at the top, I think they have rocks shaped like the Sacred Heart.
Yeah.
And them all done with the Sacred Heart.
We're mentioning some of the towns, but I mean, I mean, I'm still impressed with how far her travels took her.
Yeah.
South and Central America. I mean, Costa Rica and Peru and
Argentina,
Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, think about. I haven't traveled. I mean, not that I'm a big deal, but I haven't traveled as much as she has. I mean, she took a boat, and those boats were
And the
Afraid of
donkey.
water.
shaky.
You're not Mother Cabrini.
Grazie.
Over the Andes. and
Oh,
the
describe that. No, you got to describe that. I hope it's in the movie, but describe that scene.
Yeah, it's that she traveled on a donkey over this.
Oh, the Andes,
Yeah.
yes.
And the cliff was right there.
And almost lost her life, yes.
And they had to cover her because it was so cold. They had to cover her legs.
The movie just covers her life in New York, pretty much.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
good. You have to see the movie because it's basically in New York, but this woman spread her faith throughout the world. I mean, she was a real missionary beyond borders.
And in the movie, and again, I'm sure that it's faithful to the to the reality. Is it showed her the fact that she was respectful, but certainly didn't back down. Like when there was one of the cardinals who said to her about, but you're a missionary order of women without a priest director, and she said, wasn't it Mary Magdalene who first found that Jesus rose from the dead and brought the news to the apostles?
Again, she knew her scripture. She knew her, and she could quote it while she was writing her letters. She quoted it. So, I mean, it was a
But such
strong faith.
a visionary, because I forgot to mention before that why did she call Irish sisters? Because they spoke English well. And that's why she needed to teach them. They had to learn Italian, but because of the English.
Now, I don't know the authentic. Did she speak? She spoke some English, I know. Did she speak with a dialogue, accent? I have no idea.
I cannot answer that. In the movie, the English part of it, she speaks good English, very good English.
Okay.
What I understand, what I understand, originally she had her sisters study Chinese, but when they found out they were going to the United States,
Right.
she insisted they study English.
And I remember on the boat, she would give them things to study for the language that they were going to. And speaking of English, she went to Ireland.
Yeah.
She went to England, set up
Yeah.
convents and orphanages and
Also
schools.
to Paris.
Paris, yes, yes.
It was interesting that she was supposed to have been on the Titanic,
Yes. Oh, tell that. Yeah,
Yes.
that's very
Yes,
very
a
good.
gift.
and something happened where she,
She was delayed.
delayed, and so she never traveled on the Titanic.
Talk about working with faith in Christ, and He guided her. He got and his dear mother Mary. He guided her, and she had no doubt. She had no doubt. Everything will be done in the strength of Him who directs me.
And she had dreams. She always had dreams. She had dreams. Our Blessed Mother would talk to her many times. In fact, when she was going to come to America, one of the stories was that she had a dream of her Blessed Mother, and her Blessed Mother was doing work. And Mother Cabrini said, "Blessed Mother, let me do that work." And Blessed Mother turned and said, "You don't want to do my work." And that helped her make her decision to come to America. As Father said, she was really hell-bent on
I
China.
heard another version of the story where she did not want to get involved in hospital work. And she had a dream where she saw the Blessed Mother sweeping the floors in the hospital. And she said, "What are you doing, Blessed Mother?" She said, "Well, you're not willing to do it."
And she didn't want to do a hospital. The Dr. Murphy told her if she didn't do the hospital, it wouldn't survive. And so when she decided to do it, she did it on a big scale. Because Mother Cabrini's philosophy was to build this hospital and make the top floors for the very, very rich and make everything first class. Equally first class for all the immigrants.
Right.
But the American
Would pay.
wealth would pay for the poor, and she had a great farm system for recruiting nuns around the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's a very interesting factual story about Mother Ursula that Eustace met. Yeah, Mother Ursula was a superior general, and just wonderful Mother General. And perhaps Monsignor Paul tells the story better than I, but two famous producers, Federico Fellini and his wife, Giulietta Masina,
yes.
famous in Italy, not as famous as the Loren, La Loren, and another famous producer, Carlo Ponti and Sophia Loren, wanted, the two actresses wanted their husbands to produce the film, and they wanted to play the role of Mother Cabrini. So, Sister Mary Louise met several times with Carlo Ponti, with Sophia Loren, and then another time with the father, Ponti, and the son. And when they get back to Mother Ursula, I'd like you, Monsignor Paul, to pick up there.
Well, the story that I heard was that they were trying to be very diplomatic, that about Sophia Loren playing Cabrini.
Yeah.
And what they said was, she didn't quite have your dimensions.
Yeah, she was short. Basta
Sister
così.
Ursula also told me that she was the last one to receive her veil from Mother Cabrini,
Really?
and that she's from New York, and her parents and Mother Cabrini would meet her every Saturday, and they would talk. And when she finally, her parents didn't want her to go in the convent, so she got all dressed up to go to a party and took her bag and left and met Mother Cabrini and went away with Mother Cabrini. And 4 months later, her parents found out where she was, and they said it was okay.
By now.
Well, it's interesting that there was a woman that I knew in one of the other parishes. I was in Nutley, she was in Belleville. And she wanted to see me one time. She told me that her maiden name was Bokikio.
Oh.
And she gave me an article. She said, my sister was the last sister to be received into the order by Mother Cabrini.
Oh.
Bokikio, yeah.
And she was a Bokikio, the woman, the sister. That's great. So you have paisans in the order. That's. We can go on forever. We're not going to, but we encourage you to look for the movie, get this video, pass it on to 1,000 people, make it a hit, the interviews, so that the movie, when it comes out, we can all support it. And we are looking for your donations. Okay, we need your support, your physical and your financial support. Pass this on to leaders of the community, leaders of the immigrant community in any nationality, and those who are present-day entrepreneurs or CEOs. We're not begging. Oh yeah, we're going to beg. We're going to beg like Mother Cabrini begged, with pride. Okay, because the goal is promotion of the gospel.
Oh, and what's important is that this movie is a 5013C. All the funds that go into the movie are tax. You can write them off tax-wise.
Great.
If you give stock, you can not only write off the amount, but you won't have to pay your capital gains if you give it as a gift to the movie. And any proceeds from the movie will come back through and out to charity. And that hopefully will continue. Any excess funds, we want to give back all the money that comes in to go back to the charity of your choice, which could be Cabrini. And after that, we'd like the funds to stay to promote Mother Cabrini's life on forward, maybe even to a series, a television series on her life.
You see why he's under Mother Cabrini as executive producer. She's first, executive producer, and Eustace Wolfington is number 2.
No. If you name me executive producer, she might get rid of me. So.
Okay, we'll just keep you as inspiration. Thank you so much for these interviews. Paul, thank you so much, and see you soon. Mangiamo stasera, but we're going to see you next month at our 50th anniversary reunion.
È vero, sì.
Believe it, we were born 2 years old. Gilda, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Eustace,
Paul, thank you.
I said, someday I got to meet this guy, and today was the day.
Well, tonight you'll see you'll only see
Excerpts.
parts of the film, but I think you'll get a feel for what's taking place. It doesn't even have all the good scenes, but it has good scenes.
That's just to whet your appetite.
Yeah.
You can't see it yet.
Yeah.
God bless you. Thank you for joining us. God bless you. Pass this on.